At 42, Emily Harper had grown weary of the relentless grind of city life. For years, she'd thrived as a manager at an upscale Chicago restaurant, juggling chaotic shifts and the whims of demanding patrons with a sharp mind and unyielding grit. But beneath her polished exterior burned a longing for something quieter, a life grounded in permanence, far from the transient pulse of urban sprawl. When the chance came, she seized it without a backward glance. Selling her cramped apartment, she poured her SAVYNGS into a century-old craftsman home in a drowsy suburban town 2 hours from the city, a place where ancient oaks shaded sprawling lots and streets bore names like Willow Bend and Cedar Lane. The house, built in 1910, stood proud despite its faded red brick and weathered woodwork. To Emily, it was more than a fixer-upper, it was a canvas, a refuge, a dream she could shape with her own hands. Driving through the town for the first time, Emily felt a spark of hope. No chain stores or garish signs marred the quaint main street, just a bakery's warm glow, a hardware store's cluttered charm, and a diner where grizzled regulars claimed the same corner booth. It was the kind of place where she could vanish from her past, restore a piece of history, and maybe, just maybe, find peace. The house demanded work: crumbling plaster, wild gardens, a porch sagging under neglect, but Emily welcomed the challenge. She pictured VY brand roses along the walk, the wraparound porch gleaming in period colors, the original leaded glass windows sparkling once more. Standing on the porch, keys in hand, she felt a rare certainty: this was right. That certainty shattered within 3 days. A sharp knock at the door on a quiet Sunday morning announced trouble. Still in paint-splattered jeans, Emily opened it to find a woman on her porch, clipboard in hand, her gray perm tight and her smile sharper than a blade. She introduced herself as Deborah Walsh, head of the neighborhood's homeowners association. Emily frowned. Her paperwork had mentioned no mandatory HOA. Deborah's smile tightened as she explained the association was voluntary, but strongly encouraged, for the community's sake. Without pause, she launched into a critique of Emily's house: the door's unapproved shade, the overgrown flower beds, the outdated windows that needed replacing with energy-efficient models to meet neighborhood standards. Emily's stomach churned. She'd bought this house to restore its soul, not to slap beige conformity over its bones. Politely, she explained the house's historic status under county law, granting her the right to preserve it authentically. Deborah's face twitched, her smile flickering before snapping back. She left with a curt nod and a promise to monitor progress. Emily shut the door, unease curling in her chest. Something about Deborah felt predatory, like a wolf sizing up prey. She tried to shrug it off, DVYing into her work with fervor. She ripped out choking weeds, sanded floors hidden under peeling linoleum, patched walls with care. Each night, she collapsed into bed, muscles aching, heart full. But small things gnawed at her. The feeling of being watched as she gardened. Neighbors crossing the street to avoid her. Curt nods instead of smiles. A week later, an unmarked envelope arrived, containing a typed list of absurd neighborhood aesthetic guidelines. Uniform lawn heights, approved paint colors, bans on non-traditional decorations. Emily laughed, thinking it a prank, but her lawyer confirmed the HOA's history of harassing non-members through social pressure, not law. They couldn't force her to comply, but they could make her life hell. Undaunted, Emily pressed on, choosing historically accurate colors, planting heirloom roses, commissioning an artisan to restore the ornate iron gate. The house bloomed under her care, but the hostility grew. Anonymous notes appeared under her door, suggesting she move somewhere more suitable. Her trash can was tipped over in the night. Utility services inexplicably delayed. Emily documented every incident, her lawyer urging her to build a case. She refused to react, knowing anger could be twisted against her, but the isolation wore her down. Her dream home felt like a fortress under siege. Deborah's next move was brazen. One morning, Emily found an orange, non-compliant sticker on her gate, cheap and unofficial. A man in a neon vest, claiming to be a city inspector, demanded to check her porch railings but fled when she asked for ID. The city later confirmed no such VY sit was scheduled. Then came a delivery truck with an unordered dumpster, followed by a half-day water shutoff affecting only her house. Each incident was a calculated jab, too small to provoke legal action alone but relentless in their cumulative weight. Emily photographed, recorded, reported, her discipline fierce. Her attorney, Sarah Monroe, warned her to stay calm. They want you to snap. Don't give them the satisfaction. The breaking point came on a chilly September evening. Emily was in her VYing room, flipping through color swatches, when a deafening crash shattered the silence. Glass exploded inward, a brick thudding onto the hardwood. Heart pounding, she ducked behind the kitchen island, waiting for another attack. When none came, she crept to the window, spotting a gaudy, "For Sale" sign propped against her door, a note taped to the mat, saw time to move on before things get worse. Saw rage surged, but Emily channeled it. She called the police, filed for a restraining order against Deborah, and hired a second attorney. The process was grueling. Gaffetta VYTS hearings, EVY dense, but Emily stood firm. Deborah, served with court papers, erupted in a public tantrum, screaming about outsiders ruining the town. The neighborhood split, some distanced themselves from Deborah, others doubled down on shunning Emily. Tensions boiled at an HOA hearing Deborah orchestrated, accusing Emily of non-conforming paint and landscaping. The charges were baseless. Emily's deeds and preservation laws shielded her, but Deborah turned the meeting into a personal attack, questioning Emily's character and blaming her for declining property values. Emily's attorneys dismantled the claims, warning of litigation if the harassment continued. Exhausted but unbowed, Emily left feeling she'd held her ground. She threw herself back into her work, finishing the porch, installing a vintage lantern, even planning a small gathering for neutral neighbors. It was defiance in the form of pastries and coffee, a quiet claim to her place. The event was modest but warm, a flicker of hope until that night, when a grapefruit-sized rock smashed through her VYing room window. Glass sprayed across the floor, and Emily dropped the plates she held, crouching in terror. The silence that followed was heavier than the crash. She knew, without proof, it was Deborah. This wasn't petty Anna Maria, it was violence. Trembling, she called the police, her voice steady as she detailed the attack and her history with Deborah. Officers arrived swiftly, collecting the brick and praising her meticulous records. They filed charges for vandalism, harassment, and violating the restraining order. Within 48 hours, police stormed Deborah's home. From her upstairs window, Emily watched as Deborah, in a garish housecoat, shrieked at the officers, flailing as they cuffed her. Neighbors gawked, some filming, as Deborah's reign crumbled in a humiliating spectacle. The arrest shifted the neighborhood's tide. Tentative waves replaced icy stares. Emily pressed on, replacing the shattered window with an authentic replica, refusing to compromise her VY shine. But the harassment didn't stop. Anonymous letters warned her to leave while you still can. Her car's tires were slashed, paint scratched in a deliberate X. Garbage was stuffed in her mailbox, a dead squirrel left on her porch. Each act was a needle, pricking her resolve. A neighbor, Clara, revealed the chilling truth. A clique of Deborah's loyalists had formed a secret network to drive out undesirables. Emily's fight wasn't just against one woman, it was against a toxic undercurrent. With Sarah, Emily filed a CIVYL lawsuit against the network's leaders, alleging conspiracy and rights violations. The move was bold, exposing her to retaliation but forcing the cowards into the open. As the case grew, cracks appeared in the group's unity. Neighbors whispered of panic, legal fears. But the attacks escalated. A bundle of firecrackers rigged with a fuse was left by her garage, her gates lock sawed through. Emily fortified her home cameras, floodlights, chains refusing to flee. The police, now treating the case as organized crime, intensified patrols. In court, Emily faced her tormentors. The defendants, once smug, faltered as her evidence photos, reports, footage piled up. She testified with unshakable calm, laying bare the campaign against her. The defense's lies unraveled, their unity fracturing. On Judgment Day, the courtroom held its breath. The judge's verdict was swift, in Emily's favor. Damages were awarded for destruction, distress, and punishment. A permanent injunction barred further harassment, and a criminal probe was launched, Deborah's name at its center. The room exhaled, the defendants' faces ashen. Outside, Emily ignored reporters, walking blocks to breathe freely. Victory wasn't sweet, it was raw, exhausting relief. Back home, she lit a fire, opened windows, and let the autumn air cleanse the fear. Neighbors came, offering cookies, apologies, cautious olive branches. Emily accepted them guardedly, trust a distant prospect. Alone on her porch, stars blazing, she reflected on the scars the VY giants, the lost innocence and the strength they'd forged. Her house, battered but radiant, stood as proof of her refusal to break. Deborah was gone, her network shattered, but Emily knew the fight for dignity was never truly over. Still, as she locked the door, a quiet smile curved her lips. They tried to drive her out with lies, threats, and bricks. They'd failed. Emily Harper wasn't just a survivor, she was a force, and this was her home.